Are you thinking of leaving corporate, but too afraid to make the move? Have you already escaped corporate, but are finding it hard to run your dream business? Are you wasting valuable time by attempting to figure challenges out on your own? We have created a podcast for corporate escapees running their own business. This is the Corporate Escapees Podcast by Build, Live, Give. We bring you firsthand experiences of guests going through many of the struggles you face each and every day as a corporate escapee. We get real with no corporate BS. And now, over to your host, Paul Higgins.
Welcome to BLG Experts, where we're a community of corporate escapees helping each other to build our dream business. And during that journey, we come through a lot of challenges. And some of those challenges faced, we get global experts like the guest that's going to be introduced in a moment onto the show to help our community to rapidly grow their business. And it's all based off the 5 rapid growth drivers. So if you go to buildlivegive.com/roadmap, and that will also be in the show notes, you can get what those are. But today, we're going to focus on the rapid growth driver number 2, which is called ideal client. And we've got a global expert on today's show to talk about it. So her name is Jean Ginsberg from Gin Ball Digital Marketing, and she's going to take us through some of the most common challenges and solutions around finding your ideal client, which, as I said, it's number 2 in our framework, and I think it's absolutely critical. So what I'll do now is hand you over to Jean. So Jean, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm very excited to be here. And I, too, am a corporate escapee. I was in the corporate world 5 years ago and decided to quit my job and decided to start my own business. So I am very familiar with what that's all about.
Yeah, well done. I know it took me 10 years to do that, and it takes many, and probably many listening to this, just started their journey. So well done for you for making that step. It's great that you're contributing to the world in the way that you are.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah, I thank you for having me as a guest, and I can talk a little bit about myself. I know that sounds kind of bombast there, but I'm going to say a few words, just kind of introduce myself. So I'm Jean Ginsberg, and I am a digital marketing expert. I've been doing digital marketing for 11 years, and the last 5 years, as I mentioned, I started my own company, and we work with small to medium-sized companies and help them grow their businesses using digital marketing. I would call it a digital marketing consultancy is what I founded. And it's just a very, very rewarding experience for me. And I love seeing businesses grow and thrive. So that's what I've been up to. And I also just recently published a new book, which is called Win New Customers: How to Attract, Connect, and Convert More Prospects into Customers in 60 Days Using Digital Marketing. And it was #1 Amazon bestseller. So
congratulations. Well done.
Thank you very much. It's been a busy last 12 months here for me. So, but the book has been just an amazing experience. And I wanted to share what I've been doing with my private clients over the last several years. And I thought, there's no point in keeping it all to myself. A lot of people can benefit from what I know and not make the same mistakes that I made over the last several years. So I thought it would make sense for me to put it all into a little book. It's actually only 85 pages, and share the knowledge that the experience that I've had, so that way you can just take that knowledge instead of trial and error like the way I did it. So
brilliant. And Jean, just on that, because look, a lot of our community of, what do they say? Everyone's got a book in them, but not many release it. And I think our community is very much like that. I'm like that myself. So what was the key thing that sort of got you past that hurdle of, releasing that book, finally doing it? 11 years. I'm assuming it took you 10 or whatever to decide to release a book. What got you across the line?
Funny enough, it took me only about a year to come up with the idea that I wanted to release a book. And then so I think this was about 2016, I started talking to people that I know and colleagues and peers in my digital marketing group, that I was like, I think I'd like to write a book soon. Eventually, I didn't, at that point, didn't really have a solid plan for it. but I knew that in my mind I wanted to write a book, and it took about a year just to think about it. It took about 4 months to actually write the book. I started last May, so right now we're in beginning of 2018, and I started in May of 2017. And really, what I think the stars aligned for me is what I like to say. I met somebody who was a coach who helps people like myself, entrepreneurs, write books, and like nonfiction books, something about a very specific topic. So mine is about digital marketing, and he helped me with this process. And I think just for me, it was like, okay, I think it makes sense. It's going with the flow. Like I met someone who can help me, and I just pushed through it. So obviously I did all the work myself. He kind of just walked me through as being a coach, but I went back. I wrote all of the actual chapters. I had an editor go through them. I went through them, of course, several times. The one thing I would say, the one little secret that I would share with your audiences is that one of the easier ways to write a book is not by actually writing it, like sitting in front of your computer and having a blank word page in front of you. My recommendation would be to first outline the book. So let's say you want to have 10 chapters in your book. You want to outline, what's the name of the first chapter, maybe some like 5 bullet points that you want to talk about in each chapter. So do that first. And then what you do is you speak your book or you speak your chapter into a recording device, say your iPhone or any other recording device. And then 6 to 8 minutes is typically the length of a chapter. And then what you do is you get it transcribed. You can get them transcribed for like $1 a minute. There's many platforms out there that would allow you to do that. And that's the basis, the foundation of your work. Obviously, you have to go back through and get it edited by a professional, and you have to probably go through it several times. But that is my little trick.
Brilliant. That's great. I think that's a great tip. And if you don't mind me asking, like roughly how much did it cost to from conception, the coach, to through, like roughly as a ballpark? Because I'm sure a lot of listeners are saying, look, I'd love to get a coach and I'd love to do it the way you're doing it, but it might be a little bit outside my budget. So if you can just give people a guide on that.
Absolutely. So I'll be honest, the coach that I had, we did a work trade. I helped him with his digital marketing, and he helped me with the book writing and the Amazon piece of it. So I don't know exactly what it would have cost me if I were to actually get his services and pay for them directly. And the other piece of it is that I did obviously the marketing all myself, so I didn't have to pay for a marketing person to do it. So those are the 2 caveats that I will have to put into the price before I tell you what I actually spent on it. So I spent probably about $2,000 on it, included my editor, which was about $700. So and I don't know, I thought it was pretty inexpensive, but again, I did all my marketing myself. I came up with all of the strategies. I executed on all of them. So again, it might be a little bit different for the individuals who are listening who are not digital marketing experts and would have to hire someone out to do the digital marketing or the marketing for them.
Oh, brilliant. Look, that's fantastic. And ideal clients. So obviously when you were writing the book, you had your ideal clients. Sort of take us through what you see as some of the key challenges that people have when they're defining their ideal client.
Absolutely. So one of the chapters in my book is all about the ideal client, the target market, because one of the things that I find when I engage with clients of my own is that everybody really wants to do the marketing and they want to just jump head first and get some more clients. But what I find is that a lot of times they don't really know who those clients should be or are. And so it becomes difficult to do the marketing when you're not sure who the ideal target market is, because then all of the messaging, all of the marketing materials that you're creating might not be for the right target, for the right market. So it's extremely, I'd say, one of the most important things is to identify who your target market is, because you might have an amazing ad, really great copy, a super cool video that you all put together, but if it's all for the wrong market, then this is all in vain, and no matter how great it is, it will not work. I've seen it before. So I just can't stress enough how important I feel that identifying your target market is before you really get into the digital marketing. So we're going to talk about a lot about today, that piece today, the how to identify who your target market is. So I would say, the challenges that I have found, as I mentioned just now, you might be creating your messages, your Facebook ads or whatever, but you're just not getting the sales, for example, because the problem could be you're not identifying your target market, or maybe you're creating content, but again, getting little or no attention, or perhaps you're posting your content on social media, but getting little or no engagement. So some of these are some of the challenges I've seen in general, like on, let's say, Facebook groups, or even with my own clients that I've taken on. And so it's, we want to, of course, address that, and we want to make sure that in the future we don't have that kind of problem. So one of the main ways on how to address that problem is to identify, of course, your ideal target market. So I would say we can start off with, the very easy things like age, gender, geolocation, household income. So we can identify the demographic data. And I think that's a good start, but it is not the end of this. This is just the beginning. And a lot of times I feel like, I could just identify, businesses might say, I'll identify, just what the age is, the gender, where they live, and I'm good to go. But that's not at all. This is just the start of the beginning of how we want to move forward and identify our ideal target market. Then,
and just
go ahead.
Sorry, Gene, just on that. Look, I often, as part of our second, which is the ideal client, I'll ask people who their ideal client, and they'll give me an answer, and I'll say, so look, on rough calculation, I think that could be 500 million people. They sort of
exactly
look strangely, and they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, you've just given me such a generic answer that I think you're targeting about 500 million people. So how can we get it that you're actually targeting 1,000 people? So how can you be so prescriptive that there's 1,000 people? If you had to get 1,000 people in a room and you had to individually invite each of them, how would you describe the people you'd want in that room? And I think that then brings it from something that's nice, big and esoteric into something that is more tangible. What are your thoughts or comments when I've gone through that as a methodology we use?
I absolutely agree with that. One of the common mistakes I see is that business owners think that, the broader I go, the best it is. It's actually quite the opposite. You want to niche down as much as you can and get that right message in front of the right people. And you don't want to be doing it to 500 million people. You want to be doing it to close to more in the range of 1,000 people instead of 500 million. So absolutely agreed.
Yeah, and I think it's and I think that's the temptation where you can reach a massive audience. But I heard someone on a podcast yesterday saying that they had millions of fans, and now they've sort of basically gone back to just getting core. So they'd rather core quality of really passionate fans that are actually engaged, listening, watching their material, and actually doing something, than the vain metrics of having lots of people. Now, I'm sure you hear that a lot, but what's sort of have you got an example where that happened with you consulting to one of your clients?
Where we started off and they were very broad, and then we narrowed it down?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I think that happens, I would say that's pretty much happened to most of the clients that I've engaged with, is that when I first came in and engaged with them, their ideal target market was pretty broad. And so going through these solutions that I'm going through with you now, and the first being like identifying your age and gender and geolocation as household income is the first step in the worksheet that I do with all of my clients. And then we really narrow it down. And so the next step, I can kind of go through the worksheet, is we also identify psychographics. So pain points, challenges, values, and goals. And it's extremely important to identify the pain points and challenges and frustrations, because part of why we maybe have a product or service is that we are trying to solve a problem for our prospective customer or client. So they might have a problem or a challenge or a pain point, and the idea is our service or product will solve it for them. So it's important to identify those pain points and challenges, because if you can include that into your marketing materials, then it makes it a lot easier for them to connect with you and understand, hey, this company, this person, this expert, this consultant or whatever understands that I'm having this challenge, and it seems like they can solve it for me with their product or service. So step 2 is really getting into the psychographics.
Yeah, and then look, a lot of I think it's really sound advice, but a lot of people say, "Well, how do I do that?" And I'm not quite sure if you're just about to go into that, but I often find people project their own pain points, fears, etc., rather than getting real comments from real clients or prospective clients, and also their language. What have you found useful to be able to get past that?
Absolutely. So I say take the guesswork out of it. Yes, a lot of times, I'd say very often, I work with business owners and they guess and rely on hunches and say, I think that my target market is, XYZ and their problems are ABC. Well, the thing is, we want to rely on data and not on hunches or guesses, because the data is really what's going to speak. It's going to speak for itself. And so the way to do that, the way to understand what is beyond, again, the gender and the age and the geolocation, really understanding what are their challenges and pain points, is to survey your current customers. So there's a number of ways you can do that. You can do that through email. So if you have already a customer list, then it is pretty easy to create a survey and then send it out. One of the ways I always have my clients do this is also I have them get on the phone and talk to, I'd say, at least 20 customers who have purchased their product or service in the past. And I actually ask them to do both. Like, I ask my clients to do both, like get on the phone with customers who you think will give you raving reviews, but also get on the phone with customers who maybe have bought for you but were not very happy. And the reason for that is we want to identify, why did these customers purchase? What were they like before they purchased this product or service? And then what were they like after? Because these, again, are important pieces to put into your marketing materials when you're trying to draw in more prospective clients.
Yeah, I think that makes perfect sense. And look, I know a lot of people might be listening to this and saying, look, I'm struggling to get my open rates up on emails anyway. And that's when I'm, trying to get people to be customers. How do I encourage people to actually first open my emails, but secondly, actually answer a survey? What incentive or how can I get them to be more engaged with those surveys?
Absolutely. That is a good point. Unfortunately, email open rates have been on a downward trajectory over the last, I don't know, probably a while. I mean, it's slowly on a downward trajectory, but it is, I feel like, getting to the point where it is hard to get people to open. I'd say subject lines, of course, are going to be, creative subject lines are going to be the way for people to open, for customers to open your emails. In terms of incentives, I would say that we there is definitely a fine line there. We don't want to create such an incentive where people or customers are just filling out these surveys and not giving you really good data because they just want the incentive. So I'd say maybe like what I've used in the past is maybe having a drawing for an Amazon gift card or something along those lines, where if you fill out the survey, then you'll be automatically put into a drawing for an Amazon gift card of $50 or $100 or something like that. So it gives them an opportunity to, you want to be on that fine line there, but not really go either way, because of course you want sound data, but also you want to have these customers fill out the surveys in the end, right?
Yeah, and Jane, is there any particular time? So from, let's say, first day they purchase, and let's say a lot of our people provide consulting services similar to yourself. So they've just got a new consulting client. When is it the right time to get feedback from them about the service that you're providing, or, as we're talking here, around their pain points, etc.?
Sure. I think it depends on the kind of product or service that you're offering. So if if you're a business and you sell shoes, it might be fine to email your customer 2 days after they received their pair of shoes, because at that point they probably have tried them on and are excited about it. But if it's a more complex service, then it really depends. Sometimes I engage with clients and have several months where we're working on a specific project. So I would say at the end of that big project, you probably would want to get their feedback since you've already completed it at that point. It depends on how these audiences that are listening to this podcast are actually structuring their services. Sometimes it's just a one-off meeting, right? Maybe you're doing just a one-day strategic session with your client, and so I think it's appropriate to send them an email a couple days later and say, hey, what's your feedback been? How did you like the session? Is there anything I can do to improve? So I think it depends.
But I think that's a really good example of big projects. And when I worked at Coca-Cola, we had the top guns in, which were basically F-18 pilots. And after every critical mission, they have a debrief. So it's called a no-rank debrief, and they do what went well on the mission and what could improve. And there's no rank, so it doesn't matter if you're a general or you're the person putting the chalk under the wheel of the plane. You get the opportunity to do that. So I think that works really well. And just ask people, like even at the end of my podcast, I always ask people, what did you really like about this process and what could we do to improve? And it's those little increments I think can make a difference, and it can help get this information through the journey, where I think some people think it's just I've said it and that's it. I've come up with my ideal client. I don't need to ever go back and do it. But I think with your process, they can actually, it's a constant learning. It's not a one-off.
Oh, absolutely. This worksheet that I do with my clients, the one I'm going through right now, should be a living, breathing document. It is not just a one-off type of thing. It is something that, and again, your clients, as you learn more about them, might actually change, and so you might have to change or update some of the points in your ideal target market or your customer avatar worksheet. So it's not just a one and done. This is something we should all revisit at least once a quarter. And if there's no changes, absolutely no problem. Just review it, put it back away, and then review it again in a quarter without any changes. But there might be some changes. It also depends. You might have new products, new services. Maybe you want to change your dynamic in your business as well. So there could be many reasons as to why this customer avatar worksheet might be ever flowing and ever changing.
Fantastic. So that's 1 and 2. What's the third step?
And the third step is pinpointing the sources of information. So especially with Facebook advertising, one of the main ways is using the targeting to functionality within Facebook that allows you to find this ideal target market. And so we want to really understand what are, for example, the blogs that our target market is reading. Who are the gurus that they follow? What are the events they're attending? Maybe they're attending conferences, or they're attending Tony Robbins events, or there's many different events out there. What publications are they reading? Are they reading magazines? Are they reading online publications? It's also important because it also could identify which generation they're part of. What social media channels are they using? Are they using Facebook? Are they using Snapchat? Are they using Instagram? Because again, those are also some generational gaps there, because Facebook is more designed for people who are in their 30s and 40s, because we kind of started with this whole Facebook thing about 10 years ago when we were back in our, typically in the 20s, and now we're 30s and 40s. And then for Snapchat, for example, those are kids who are in their, early 20s or maybe even sometimes teens. So there's definitely the social media channels will also help you identify approximately what kind of generational piece, or I guess the generation that your customer ideal target market is in.
Right. And sort of getting that information, is that something that someone like yourself, a consultant, is best to do, or can the business owner themselves get that information?
Of course, the business owner themselves can get the information. I guess the next step would be like, how do you use that information? And if you know how to use that information, absolutely, then go ahead, take the next step, whatever that might be. Maybe you want to do Facebook advertising. Maybe you want to write some communications to your prospects. Yeah, absolutely. I guess the point is that, yes, if you can identify the data, that's fantastic, but also you would need to know how to use that data. And that could be you as the business owner, or you can hire an expert to do that for you.
Okay, excellent. And is there another step in this great process?
No, that's pretty much the 3 steps. Is first getting demographic data, then step 2 is psychographic data. So that would be pain points, challenges, values, goals. And then step 3 is the sources of information. So blogs, events, publications, social media channels. So yeah, I would say those are the 3 main steps that I use with my clients when we're working on the customer avatar worksheet. And this is the data that we use for the communications, the emails, the copy that we're writing for email, for Facebook advertising. This is the videos that we're creating. So we're using all of this information to create all of our marketing materials, whatever they might be.
Great. And look, you've given lots of really good tips there, but anything else that you constantly see clients? If I don't know if some clients have either done it themselves or have had another agency in, and then you come in and have got to pick up the ball and run with it. What are the sort of the common things that you see people not quite getting right around these 3 solutions that you provided for picking your ideal client?
Well, a few things have come up throughout this conversation. One is they don't have a customer avatar at all. They've never done a worksheet and they don't know who their customer is. 2, second common mistake would be that they think that half of the world is their customer, and so we really need to work on niching down that customer into a much smaller group of people, and really identifying who is, some of the basic components. What is the sources of information that they use? What are their challenges? And I'd say number 3 would be they're just not identifying their customer very well, and they're just having trouble with their marketing material. So for example, like Facebook ads, they're not seeing the results that they want. So I would say these are the common issues that I typically see when I'm engaging with a
Sure.
client.
And what are the things that other than the obvious, what are some of the things that you see and you can quickly analyze that there's a problem with this before the owner does? So, often, we're doing our best, but we're not experts. That's why we've got someone like you on here, because you do it every day. But if you're, running a business, this is just one element of it. What are some of the key either metrics or information you look at to quickly audit whether they've got that message to market wrong, or they haven't got the copy right for their ideal client?
Well, the first thing that I look at is typically how clients a lot of times engage with me is that they have run Facebook ads and it has done very little for them. They have seen no results. They've seen very little engagement, and that is a good point that tells me that there's something wrong, and typically it has to do with the ideal target market. So the other thing would be like email marketing. If they're not getting if they're getting very low open rates or click-through rates, then that's another key indicator to me that they're probably don't have a very good customer avatar designed at this point. So I'd say those are a couple of the things, the points that I see right away, which we're like, okay, we got to take a step back before we can write more emails and more Facebook copy and create more videos for Facebook. We need to really hone in on the customer avatar.
Yeah, and I think it's often a bit of a balancing, because I think, the number one thing that you need to be successful leaving corporate, running your own business, is tenacity. So,
oh yes,
you've been through there. You've had 11 years of it. I've had around 7, but, there's a roller coaster, and it's probably the hardest job in the world is creating your own asset and running your own business. Very rewarding, but very difficult. But I find that tenacity sometimes creeps into people's marketing, where they just continue to do the same thing. It's like, look, if it's not working and the customer is not buying, you've got to change something, you've got to do something different. Do you see a lot of that in some of the clients that you work with?
Absolutely, yeah. They have something, and then I come in and audit it for them, and then I put together a worksheet that I'm like, okay, well, these are the points that we really need to focus on. It's like, why did you say that in your email? Versus a lot of times it's not even. I mean, yes, you do need the expertise like myself, but a lot of times you can come in to a business and just really, because you have fresh eyes, really see what are some of the issues that this business has, not really necessarily being like an expert. I mean, yes, we are all experts in whatever it is that we do, but also just seeing it from a fresh perspective that the business owner probably hasn't seen in a long time, because they're just in the business and they're in the weeds the whole time.
Yeah, and look, I certainly know back in the Coke company, because the Coke company, from an ideal client point of view, did probably more consumer research on their clients than any other company I know. I used to sort of, go and have workshops with Nike, Adidas, Sony, etc. Some of the big brands, and Coke was sort of the cutting edge of that. We were leading the conversation, and we constantly got experts in to get us to look at and reframe it.
Yep.
And then from there, we moved it forward. I'm sure in your corporate experience, you probably did a similar thing. So I think, the key thing out of this is do that. Like if you're really struggling and you can't define your ideal client, we're going to have something great for you to start that journey, which Jean's going to leave you. But also if you're really struggling, get someone in to do that audit and help you. I think it's so critical, because once you get this bit right, all the rest of it flows. Next you get your business model right, then sales, and then finally you can build your team, and all of a sudden you've got a great sustainable business. But I think this ideal client piece is absolutely critical, and that's why we've got Jean in today. So Jean, look, that's been a fantastic summary. What are some examples where you can really bring this to life for our audience? What are some case studies you can go through?
Sure. Well, I can give away I'm actually giving away my book for free, and some of the case studies that we talked about today are in additional case studies. So you guys are absolutely free to get this free book if you just go to geneginsberg.com/BLG, geneginsberg.com/BLG. I have a whole chapter on the customer avatar, and additionally, I have another 9 chapters, I think, that talk all about digital marketing, talk about funnels and Facebook advertising and creating content. So, and I have a bunch of case studies in there as well. So I welcome everybody who's listening to this to grab a free copy of my book. It's in PDF format. So yeah, I hope you guys take advantage of that.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, that's very kind of you. But if you just got one that you could leave us with,
sure.
Yeah, just one client that you've gone through this journey, and what was the situation they were in? What was sort of the key solution you gave them, and then what was the result of that?
Absolutely. So I would say the one I would want to use is a specialized skincare company that I've worked with in the past. And when I first started working with them, they did not have an ideal target market, or they didn't identify their ideal target market at that point. The person who was the business owner, had a pretty decent following in the past from his previous businesses that were also in skincare. So he was making pretty good sales, but the problem was that he just didn't know who these people were who were actually purchasing from him. So we just followed everything that we talked about here in this podcast episode. So we did a survey. I had him get on to a bunch of calls. We did probably did 30 calls. And really, the first thing, of course, we talked about was just created some questions about when he was actually on the phone, what was the reason that these individuals purchased from him? Why did they like his product so much? Because he did have a following. So these women who were using his skincare product were definitely very interested and were willing to definitely purchase these. It was a pretty high end skincare product. So I had him get on the call, ask questions of his current customers. We sent out a survey via email, and we got a lot of really good data and feedback from his current customers. So we used that also to identify the ideal target market. We worked on the worksheet that I mentioned. So we identified that most of them were women. About 80% of them were women, and usually at a age of 45 plus. And then we identified what were their pain points before they started using his skincare product. So typically they were having issues with their skin, not just like fine lines, but also things like psoriasis and other skincare problems. And his products definitely address that. And then we also had the business owner ask his clients and his customers some of the points, like what are the blogs that they read, who are the gurus that they follow, events that they attend. So this was extremely helpful for us to craft our message, our marketing message, after we did all of this, after we had him get on the phone and talk to these customers, after we created our customer avatar worksheet. So very helpful. And it really turned around the company because we were able to use all of this messaging and really hone in, for example, on Facebook ads and really target a certain demographic and a certain, really use the functionality of Facebook targeting to get the right customers in the fold. So yeah, absolutely. This is a good example of how having these key points and key strategies really work in creating the customer avatar and growing your business at the same time.
Excellent. That's a great example. And just one quick question on that: as far as, is it best that the founder calls, or is it better that someone independent? What's your view or experience on that?
I'd say, in my opinion, I think it's best if the founder calls. I mean, especially if it's a smaller company. We're not talking about tens of millions of dollars in revenue. Most of the companies, business owners that I've dealt with are, maybe several $1,000,000. So, the business owner is still pretty involved in the business. And I think that, and especially in this example, the business owner of the skincare company really was the face also of the company. So most of the customers knew him. He was on the website. He was on a lot of the marketing materials. So also having that connection there. So he did most all the calls, and I would say it's much better rapport and connection if the business owner does the calls. Plus, the business owner can identify a lot of the nuances because they're so engrossed in the business. So I would say the business owner.
Excellent. Great. And I think that's really good advice, because I struggle with that one myself sometimes, because I wonder, will they give me the answer I want to hear, or will they give me the real answer? But I think it also depends on the amount of touch points as well. So for people in our community that are sort of running, masterminds, etc., I think sometimes it's good to get someone independent because you're so close to that individual. But I think in your case, like the skincare example you gave, I think it's great that the founder, because it's nothing better than the brand owner calls you and asks some good open feedback. So that's great. Absolutely. And I had a mastermind member the other day, had the Rod Jury from Zero at a luncheon. And they said the most impressive thing was just how passionate he was about finding out how he can improve his product. So, obviously a very successful product, especially in Asia, Australia and New Zealand, doing well in the US, but he was just so passionate about, what do you like, but what don't you like? What can we do to fix? And I think that's brilliant where the owner is that passionate about the end solution. So look, it's been brilliant having you on today. As you said, you've kindly given us a free copy of your book. So if they go to geneginsberg.com/BLG, they'll get the PDF. We'll also have all the other links and comments that you mentioned. We'll also have those in the show notes so people can find you through there. What's some parting advice you've got for people, BLG community that's listening to this podcast?
Absolutely. I'd say lifelong learning is usually my parting advice for any podcasts or speaking engagements I've done. I think it's important to always continue on learning, reading books, going through digital courses, because no matter how old we are, there's always things that we don't know. And being an entrepreneur, I think one of the qualities of being an entrepreneur is that you always have to continue on learning.
Excellent. So if you like this content from Jean today, I know I've certainly got a huge amount of value from it, and you'd like access to more content like this and also a really supportive community of corporate escapees building their dream business, then just go to buildlivegive.com and we will bring you in, support you. And as Jean and I mentioned, it's a brilliant journey, but it's certainly difficult, and it's certainly difficult if you're doing it alone. So if you want to join a great community, just go to buildlivegive.com. So Jean, I'd love to thank you for being on the BLG Experts today, and I really appreciate your knowledge that you've shared and also your experiences, and hope to have lots of our community come and ask you further around how they can develop their ideal client.
Absolutely. It was such a pleasure and an honor to be here today. And I hope that your audiences, everybody listening to this episode, got some good information.
Excellent. Great. Thanks a lot, Jean.
Thank you.
If you're enjoying listening to our guest stories, just letting you know we have a community for corporate escapees who are rapidly growing their dream business to find freedom. Just like you, it's called BLG Boost. You get exclusive access to a forum of like-minded peers answering your most pressing questions. You get actionable tips to solve your most common challenges. You get hundreds of trusted suppliers to save you time and money. You get member-only discounts. You get direct access to coaching by a global leader in the field and easy to implement content solving common topics mentioned in popular threads. If you are tired of being alone and are seeking the freedom of running your own business whilst meeting your financial goals, go to buildlivegive.com/webinar. In case you missed it, the link will be in the show notes. Please check it out.
Thank you for listening to the Corporate Escapees podcast, brought to you by the team at Build, Live, Give. If you found this podcast helpful, please share it with other corporate escapees. If you would like to join a community of like-minded peers, please visit www.buildlivegive.com. Until next time, thanks for listening, and